That's all I got for the intro. Spider-Man Homecoming is the newest movie in the MCU, and it's the newest reboot of Spider-Man. The same Spider-Man played by Tom Holland that we saw in Civil War. If you don't know who Spider-Man is, that's kind of weird, but he's Peter Parker. He's this young, average high schooler, kind of nerdy, gets bit by a radioactive spider. Now he's got spider powers, he can spin webs, and climb up walls. And in this movie, Spider-Man wants to become an Avenger. Tony Stark tells him, hey, yeah, next mission we'll call you. Tony Stark doesn't call him for a while. This guy called the Vulture comes tromping on the scene, so now Spider-Man's like, hey, I can prove myself to Tony Stark. I'm gonna go stop the Vulture. Now, obviously, we've seen a lot of Spider-Man movies. I believe this is the 6th Spider-Man movie that we've seen in theaters in the last like 15 years. I love Spider-Man 1 and 2. Spider-Man 3 I think is okay. Not a big fan of either Amazing Spider-Man movie. What I can say starting this off, this is easily the best Spider-Man movie since 2004 when Spider-Man 2 came out. It's been a long time, but Spidey's back. He finally made a good movie again. What Marvel did was really smart because they didn't start out with the Uncle Ben origin story. Uncle Ben gets shot, he becomes Spider-Man that way. But it's not like they completely skipped his origin story either. It's kind of like in a video game. For instance, Zelda, because I feel like Zelda's kind of notorious for this, is that the opening level of the game, it's the training area. It's where you get the rules of the road, you figure out how to use your character, your items, and the first time when you're learning it, it's really fun. But when you're playing through the game a second time, you're just like, come on, let's just get past this, get past the first dungeon, let's get our adventure going here. Spider-Man Homecoming feels like they skipped the training level. They're like, alright, you guys already know what you're doing, you know how to play this game, come on, let's go have fun. Because it's not an origin story of how he becomes Spider-Man, it's really an origin story of how he becomes an Avenger. Him trying to prove himself to Tony Stark, seeing a much younger superhero than we're used to, someone who doesn't have a lot of life experience, he's kind of naive, way in over his head, but he still wants to be a superhero. I thought Tom Holland was really good in this movie, and we got a little bit of him in Civil War, and I was saying it's too early to tell whether or not he's my favorite Spider-Man. Where I'm standing with him right now is I do still like Tobey Maguire a little bit more, but Tom Holland's really solid. You know, this movie focuses a lot more on the high school element. I thought they nailed a lot of that. They were drumming up the John Hughes Ferris Bueller's Day Off type of stuff in this movie a lot, at least in like interviews and promo material they were, but in the movie itself, that stuff isn't the focus of the movie like I thought it was going to be. However, when that stuff is going down, it all just felt right. What I thought that this movie hit well, which is something that most of the Spider-Man movies touch on, some of them to varying degrees, and really what a lot of superheroes deal with is that dual identity of Spider-Man versus Peter Parker, the superhero versus the alter ego. I thought this movie really nailed that, touched on what does it mean to be Spider-Man, what does it mean to be a hero, what does it mean to be an Avenger, and with all of that, what does it also mean to be a high school student? Where do the lines blur? I thought Michael Keaton was actually really good. He's one of the better villains in the MCU. He's given more backstory, he's fleshed out more. I wouldn't say he's like my favorite villain, but I thought he worked with this movie. There are some things with his character, I can't really spoil them here, and I'm not positive I'm going to be able to make a spoiler video for this movie. Just a lot of stuff to catch up on right now. But they go a direction with the character that I wasn't expecting at first. But then after I saw it, I was like, yeah, that makes sense. So I didn't see it coming, but after it happened, it made a lot of sense to me, and I think it did help with his character a lot. Everyone else in the movie was pretty good too. Zendaya was good, his friend Ned was good, Marissa Tomei as Aunt May. Tony Stark is in a lot of the promo material. He's in the movie a little bit, but it's not like Iron Man 4 like some people thought it was going to be. In fact, I think Jon Favreau as Happy Hogan was in this movie more than Tony Stark was. And I thought Happy was cool in this movie too. He's kind of like the person keeping an eye out on Spider-Man for Tony Stark, and I liked seeing him again. I've kind of missed him in some of these MCU movies. Ultimately, what this movie captured for me really was the themes of Spider-Man. They never say with great power comes great responsibility in this movie, but you feel that, you just feel that mentality etched all throughout the movie. In fact, this was in the trailer, but when Tony Stark tells him, like, if you're nothing without the suit, then you shouldn't have the suit, you get that as well. It kind of reminded me of Iron Man 3 when Tony Stark was also like, who am I without the Iron Man suit? Am I Iron Man? Am I Tony Stark? And so I think that the journey that Peter Parker went on in this movie, it did feel like a nice origin story leading into him being in the Avengers. All the action was cool, but this is just the problem with Sony movies in general. You saw basically all of it in the trailer. So if you're able to stay away from the trailers for this movie, good job. You'll probably enjoy this movie more. I still really enjoyed the movie. I thought it's one of the best Spider-Man movies in years, but it is a bummer when you're like, oh, I saw that in the trailer, I saw that in the trailer, I know exactly how the scene's gonna end because it was in the trailer. A couple problems I did have with this movie, I feel like it could have been like 10 minutes shorter. It just felt a hair long. Part of that might have been because I had to pee near the end of the movie, but I was thinking back, Spider-Man 1, Spider-Man 2, they're both like right around 2 hours, and I thought if it was closer to their run times, the movie, it would have been paced a little bit better, it wouldn't have dragged a little bit in the middle. And there's a couple calls and Easter eggs. There's a lot of Avengers Easter eggs in here. A lot of Avengers references. I think they just want to remind you, hey guys, this is in the MCU now. But there were a couple of references, they weren't necessarily Avengers references, just Spider-Man references in general. A couple of them I was just like, why? Some of them are cool, but then some of them felt unnecessary. There was one particularly at the end of the movie, I'm like, that's just, no, that's just stupid. Which is funny because it's very reminiscent to something that happens in another comic book movie that I was okay with, but in here it just felt forced and weird. In the end, Spider-Man Homecoming, they finally got Spider-Man right. It took them 13 years to do it. We had 2 great movies, 3 pretty bad movies. This is finally, Spider-Man's back on his game. They really explore the character of Peter Parker, what it means to be Spider-Man, and they had a cool villain and cool action to go along with it. Is this movie better than Spider-Man 1 and Spider-Man 2? For me, me, it's not. So it's my third favorite Spider-Man movie. I guess jumping in more to the comparisons that I talked about before, like I still like Tobey Maguire a little bit more. Tobey and Tom Holland, they both capture different elements of Spider-Man that I really like. Tom Holland is a lot younger. He definitely feels like he's in high school. He really does feel like a high schooler that's a superhero. And in that, he's much more like a kid. He jokes around, he's really squirrely, and I do know Spider-Man is like that in the comics. But what I got with Tobey Maguire is I really felt like he was Spider-Man. Tom Holland felt like a superhero to me, but with Tobey Maguire, I really felt like this guy is a hero. In the sense of like, as Peter Parker, he's really nerdy, he's really awkward, he can't get a date, but as Spider-Man, he gets done what he needs to get done. He keeps getting pounded on just by everything, but he rises above it and he gives people a reason to cheer for him. And because of that, I do like Spider-Man 1 and 2 a little bit more, but Homecoming is still really cool. Best Spider-Man movie in 13 years, go check it out. But if you guys have seen Spider-Man Homecoming, let me know what you thought of it down in the comments, and thank you so much for watching this video. If you guys like it, you can click subscribe and check out some of my other videos, and I'll catch you guys next time.